Ein milim. Ein milim. There are no words. This was the refrain I heard over and over from Israeli family and friends as I reached out to them in the days following what we now know was the largest, most vicious massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. Ein milim. How can mere words describe the barbarism of hundreds of Hamas terrorists streaming into Israel with no other purpose than to hunt down and murder Jews in their homes, at bus stops, at a music festival, while gleefully live streaming their rampage to exultant crowds? What words can you say to a father witnessing a video of his 20-year-old daughter petrified, screaming, as Hamas terrorists motor her off into the abyss? What words can convey the horror of Hamas terrorists storming into safe rooms, slaughtering parents before their children's eyes, and then dragging those children down into the tunnels below Gaza? Hamas terrorists seized elderly Holocaust survivors, set people on fire, murdered babies. There is no depraved act you can possibly imagine that they did not do. Ein milim. There are no words. As this murderous rampage unfurled on Shabbat, Jews around Israel, not yet knowing exactly what was happening, were unfurling the Torah for Simchat Torah, reading from Devarim, the last book of Deuteronomy, which describes the death of Moses, and beginning again, Bereshit, with Genesis and the story of creation. In a cosmic, haunting echo of what was going on around our Israeli family, the Torah cycle moved from Devarim, which literally means words, to a world that was tohu vavohu, formless and void, with a darkness over the deep. Israel and the Jewish world passed from Devarim to Ein milim. And then, Bereshit describes how God initiated the creation. Vayomer Adonai yihi or, vayihi or. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God creates light, creates the entire world with a directive, with words. As Jewish people, we understand the power of words to create a reality. Words bolster nations, build bridges, bring healing. But words can also become barriers, curses, and weapons. Jews have never ascribed to the childhood rhyme that words will never hurt us. We know how very potent they are. And we also know how silence, the absence of words, can enable evil and chaos. As I sat this week heartsick, as so many of you were, and devastated by the deadly violence in Israel, I was shocked by the words that kept appearing in response to these attacks. Words like resistance, decolonizing, or freedom fighters. Words that valorized and even celebrated Hamas terrorism. Words that perversely found a way to blame Israel for these monstrous attacks. The contortions people engaged in to blame defenseless children, teenagers at a music festival, or Holocaust survivors for their own murder betrayed a moral bankruptcy and hypocrisy I could not believe was possible. Equally upsetting were the muted or ethically opaque statements from the people we look to for moral leadership. University presidents who could not bring themselves to state clearly the simple truths of these attacks. The perpetrators were terrorists. Their chosen victims were Jews. I belong to a group of interfaith leaders representing most of the major churches, synagogues, and mosques in New York. This week, leaders within the group attempted to issue a statement in response to the Hamas attack, but their draft was limited to platitudes. We stand in solidarity with the people in the region. We call to stop the violence in the Holy Land. After some back and forth, the group never issued a statement at all. The leaders of our Manhattan faith community could not say the words, "We condemn Hamas terrorism and massacre." Another interfaith group seeking to raise money and aid for the region wrote an email decrying the cycle of violence and intergenerational trauma. I listened to those words. I say no. This heinous attack was not just a part of a cycle of violence. No. Intergenerational trauma can never justify the mass murder and abduction of civilians. These academic and faith leaders we rely upon have made a career out of words, and they know their power. Instead of taking principled stands, again and again, we saw them choose words that made false equivalencies, blamed Jewish victims, and implied moral ambiguity when there was none. It was chilling to realize how many people, often those who generally have the most compassion for victims of oppression and violence, simply have a blind spot when the victims are Jews. Never before have I felt how important words are for creating realities, and how deafening silence can feel in the face of an atrocity. When I heard President Biden deliver his emotional, unequivocal condemnation of Hamas as a terrorist organization akin to ISIS, when he named the atrocities as unadulterated evil and clearly affirmed, "I stand with Israel," "We stand with Israel," I started crying. I didn't even realize how much I needed to hear our president say those words. But words matter, because the truth matters. And because words are so powerful, let's all take care to use the right ones. Do not equate Hamas with the Palestinian people. Unlike our enemies, I will mourn the deaths of all innocent lives, Israeli and Palestinian, lost in this war. For us to lose sight of that is to lose a piece of our own humanity. Conflating these Hamas attacks with Palestinian resistance is an insult to the many, many Palestinians who abhor Hamas. From the Palestinian Israeli news anchor who publicly condemned their actions, to the many Palestinians who have made nonviolent activism their life's work. This attack was not Palestinian resistance. It was not freedom fighting. When it comes to these attacks, say the words terrorism, mass murder, crimes against humanity. And we must not let Israel's enemies use words to stigmatize Israelis. I've had enough of calling Israelis colonialists. Don't fall for that. It is Hamas's explicit strategy to paint Israelis as rootless settler colonialists. That's a lie. Jewish history and sovereignty on that land goes back millennia, and most modern Israelis are Jewish refugees from the Middle East, Europe, Africa, and around the world, who've returned to the only Jewish home we have. The Jews of Israel are nothing like the colonialists French in Algeria or the British in India, all of whom could leave and go home to France or England. Israeli Jews can't go back to any country. Israel is their country. And as Jews, Israel is our country, and we are not going anywhere. I think you know by now that I always try to see multiple sides of every issue. My Rosh Hashanah sermon implored us to stay engaged in Israel, even as I criticized its government. I usually urge us to sit with the complexity and with nuances. But some moments give you clarity. Like in the beginning, when God created light, God separated the light from the dark. Today, as Israel is forced into a new Bereshit, a new world for Israel, for make no mistake, it will never be the same there again. The light was separated from the dark. There is no gray area here. The world saw what pure evil looks like. Evil is the barbaric massacre that Hamas carried out on Israeli soil. Evil is Hamas using billions of dollars of aid not to build schools and infrastructure to uplift Gazans, but to build a militia and tunnels to kill Israelis. Evil is Hamas breaking all international laws of warfare and embedding themselves in civilian areas, wearing civilian clothes, because the death of innocent Gazans is a strategic tactic of their jihad. Israel has a moral imperative to protect its citizens and to rescue its hostages. Vanquishing Hamas, whose charter purpose is to exterminate Israel, is a just and moral war. One we didn't choose, but one we cannot avoid. Amidst the darkness, we have seen glimmers of light, landmarks across the world lit up in blue and white in support for Israel. The protest movement in Israel morphing overnight into a network of social services for displaced families and for the wounded. Reservists who just recently had said they would not come to serve, showing up at over 100%, people not even called up, volunteering themselves for service. And the American Jewish community, so divided often on Israel, feeling the pain of their sisters and brothers and responding with an unbelievably generous outpouring of support. Ein milim. There are no words, but in the absence of words, we will turn to each other. As we create anew, we turn to the prayers of our people that has given us a language when we cannot find our own. Tonight, there's only one way for us to end. I want to ask all the rabbis and cantors who are here, including our rabbinic interns and our friends, Rabbi Brett Kritchever, Rabbi Cantor Robbie Whitner, and our dear Cantor Liz Sachs, please join us on the bima. We will rise together as one united community, sing the words of Hatikva, the hope, words that have enabled our people to survive the unimaginable and to create anew. Come on down here. Oh